Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for a sneak peek of the upcoming PopFlow release. As I mentioned before, from OpenMethods, I'm Chris McHugh, and with me today, I have Jerric Davis and Steve Gahagan. We'd like to have these webinars to kind of keep you updated on, OpenMethods PopFlow releases and new features. In a minute, I'll be handing this over to Jerric Davis, who's part of our solutions consulting group, and he'll explore the new key advances and enhancements, as we mentioned in the invite. And we'll kind of go over the updates, including agent interactions, usability, dynamic workspace triggers, and other new features. We will be covering quite a bit during this webinar, and we will save some time for Q&A at the end of the call. You should all see kind of a question box on the panel of your GoToWebinar. So if you have any questions, feel free to use that. We will be monitoring the questions, and we'll answer most of them at the end. But if there's something that isn't clear to you, or just kind of raise your hand or put a note in that question box, and we can kind of get clarification at that time. That's my part. So with that short intro, I will hand this over to Jerric. Jerric, take it away.
Thank you very much, Mr. McHugh. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Jerric Davis. I'm with the Solutions Consulting Group here at OpenMethods. And really just kind of excited. We've got a bunch of new features in PopFlow. And this session really is just to kind of go over some of those new features to get everyone some exposure and let you see what some of the new cool things that we can do with the tool. Looking through the attendee list, I see a lot of familiar faces. So for those of you, hello. And for the new faces, it's nice to meet you. All right. So we have up on our screen the newest, cleanest version of PopFlow anyone's ever seen. We've got some great new features. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to kind of go over, the basic architecture of PopFlow, what it is, how it works. Then we'll go into some of the design, just canvas changes and usability features. And then I've got several use cases that I'd like to go through. And as I do that, I'll use those use cases to highlight out some of the new features and processes that you can do while you're using PopFlow. All right. First thing I'd like to do is talk about what PopFlow is and kind of how it works for anybody that's new or just needs a bit of a refresher. PopFlow consists of several add-ins. The first one, the most important, is the PopFlow runtime. And that gets deployed to every agent, and it's what actually executes the workflows that we're going to be building. So there's no visible component of that to the agent. It just runs in the background. And as interactions come in or new events happen, PopFlow responds based on the workflow that's loaded to that agent in that profile. I'm going to pull up a diagram here. It's a little busy, but it shows kind of the full breadth of PopFlow's ability to interact with other systems. Our other product, the Harmony toolbar or media bar, is one way that you can integrate PopFlow into your workflows. If you have that media bar, everything that it hears from the telephony side, it will pass down to PopFlow. But that's not all that PopFlow can listen to. PopFlow has several different types of listeners that can listen for asynchronous events within the enterprise. So, for example, if you don't have Harmony and you have a switch with a soft phone that can kick off a HTTP request or an executable, you can use that to pass data into PopFlow. The ACD or CTI systems could do it directly from their routing engines, and any other system. So really, we can listen to legacy DDE. We can listen for HTTP requests. We actually have an executable that you can run from the desktop. So there's lots of different ways to get information into PopFlow or get events, actionable events into PopFlow. You can also use workspaces within Oracle Service Cloud or the other CRMs to generate events from within inside of the CRM to tell PopFlow to go ahead and run a new interaction. So again, we have the PopFlow Designer, which is usually only licensed for the admin workstation. So your administrators or whoever's working on the workflows would use that. And then we have the listeners and the runtime that are deployed down to every agent. And enough of the busy diagram. We'll go straight into usability and what it looks like from the desktop. So I have PopFlow up. It's an add-in. You grab it right here, put it into your navigation pane. And this is the PopFlow Studio main screen. Right off the bat, we've got some new kind of new usability. You can see here we've added kind of folder structures, so you can organize out all of the different workflows that you've built. And you can also see which ones are loaded. You'll see this one right now has, you know, a kind of a green icon because it's mapped for new inbound interactions on a profile. All of these can be imported and exported, and you can also export entire groups of workflow. So really handy if you're, you know, going to move from one site to another. You want to take a collection out, move it over to another instance. Very easy to do that now. And just some general UI cleanup. You'll notice here also at the top, we have the ability to roll a log and show the current log. So if I click show, you're going to see a very busy log file. If I click the roll and then show again, you'll see that we've actually rolled that log file, archived off the old one. Very handy when troubleshooting if you just want to see one interaction at a time. Something that's really nice to have in a new edition. I apologize. I wanted to also say we've got Steve Gehagen on the phone with us. He's lead architect and kind of the man behind the curtain. He'll be available here to answer any questions you guys have as well at the end. And I wanted to thank Steve for jumping in on this. All right, so now straight to the presentation or the demonstration part. The first thing I want to do is I have a blank workflow here. This is what a canvas looks like when you create a brand new interaction. You'll see on the left we have all of our different activities that you can you can kind of move around. All of these activities can be dragged onto the canvas in the logical order that you want for your interaction. I'd like to make a quick screen pop really quickly so everybody can see the mechanics. The rest of the workflows I have already built out just to save time. And I wanted to be able to show how we do that. So we're going to create a very simple Annie-based screen pop. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this as a phone call. And a call is going to come in, and basically we'll have Annie and Dinas, and that's about it. First thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and select Retrieve Entity, because we're going to go to Service Cloud and look up an entity within inside of Service Cloud. In this case, we want to find a contact. You'll notice here we've got the drop-down. Again, custom fields, all of your custom entities within Service Cloud show up, but we're going to do contact. This is a newer feature, not necessarily in this release, but you'll notice here we're allowing folks to put the results back into a named block so they can get to that data later in the workflow. First thing we're going to do is say, all right, we want to match phone number with what we received in as Annie. And once we've got that, you'll see that there's one of three options. We've got either that's going to come back with a single match, multiple matches, or no match at all within Service Cloud. So real quick, just to kind of finish off this PopFlow, we're going to say if there's no match, let's create an entity. We're going to create a contact. We're going to set a field because we already know the phone number. We're going to say that's the mobile phone, and we'll put in our variable for Annie. And you'll notice, again, I'm referencing PopFlow known entities with the curly bracket. And there we go. If we have a single match, we're going to go ahead and open that contact, open Retrieve Entity. And if we have multiple matches, we'll run a report. So that's kind of how you can use PopFlow. Let's say any phone. Excuse me. And that's very simple. So that's the drag and drop kind of concept. You take activities and you drag them into where you can use them, and they can fit within the activities, or you can follow up and have several in a row. All right, so now on to the new stuff. So this is where the fun stuff starts. The first workflow we're going to look at is a basic Annie workflow, but it's got a couple of enhancements here. You'll notice that this looks very similar to the other one. In this case, we run a sequence, which lets us put several activities in a row. And we've made a single match. We get a contact, and we go ahead and create an incident. So we don't open the contact, we go straight to the incident. We go ahead and set the primary contact on that incident. And then the first new thing I want to show is the event handlers. So these event handlers are on several different activities, things like create incidents or open. And what they do is they allow you to work with the object that you've opened onto the agent's desktop. And it also solves for one of the problems we had early on, which was, an agent would get an interaction and PopFlow would run its sequence, and then the agent would continue on with their work. But PopFlow was really out of the loop at that point. So what this does is this allows us to stay in the loop, lets us keep our data set, know what's going on, and do things as the agent moves around on the desktop. So in this case, we've created a new incident, and I've added, and we'll just show here from some logging, but I've added onCreate, onSave, and onClose. So once this call comes through, and we'll do that using our integrated test bed. Again, most of you have seen this. This allows you to test the workflow from inside of PopFlow, so you don't have to go get a test number and a separate IVR branch and all that information. In this case, we're going to just put in our Annie and send that on through. This will generate a single match, and then go through and we'll see these event handlers fire. You'll notice we've got step-by-step execution, so you can kind of walk through one at a time. We're also doing some detailed logging. All right, so we kick that through. We do a single match, and we've created an incident. You see here, workspace comes up. We've assigned our contact. Now let's go back to the workflow. You'll see PopFlow's still active. So we see our yellow highlight here. OnCreate has happened, and that was the last thing that went. Over here, what I have set up is, this is just an ongoing tail of our log file. So as we're working here, I'm going to be showing some things that are happening in the log. You could use the log view. This just lets us see it really kind of in real time. And I didn't have that running, I apologize. But what we're going to do is we're going to come back here, and we're going to, let's change something on here. Service request subjects, new request, and we're going to save that record. Now, if we switch back to the test, you'll see that our highlight is switched to the on save. So PopFlow's been listening this whole time, and it knows now that we're on save. So you'll see here in the log, I said saved incident with data, and then I've dumped out that incident information. So you see here, there's our response. If I close this workspace and switch back over, there we go. You'll see here that I have closed incident with the information. So again, not really something you would use for logging, but it allows you to do things like push data back to a master data record after they've updated it. If you've got any kind of reporting database where you'd like to see what PopFlow's doing, you can do some breadcrumbing. There's a lot of different ways you can do this. We also see things like when you're tracking interactions and tying them to phone calls, when you're using Harmony or the interaction table. This gives you some flexibility about writing information back after an agent's worked on or finished out an interaction. So again, really powerful new tool. Also, we have this run proportionally. This also is really helpful for kind of some quality monitoring and some things of that nature. This lets us say, let's take 20% on 20% of the interactions this agent comes through. Maybe we want to post this back to a quality monitoring service or something of that to say, hey, this agent used this contact with this incident. Or maybe you want to put the phone ID or the recording ID in there. It lets you just grab some of the interactions and send those back to a report. You'll notice here I'm using an HTTP request to a REST service, but this could be any activity. Let you run proportionally on something that you'd like to see some of the time. All right, we'll switch back over. This is a segmentation workflow, our next use case. And in this use case, it's an Annie screen pop, but we're watching for some information from the IVR. So in this case, if we have a single match, you'll notice here, we've got a switch, a case switch, which, excuse me, is the interaction value switch. So you don't have to nest ifs anymore. You're allowed to have several different cases, which cleans up the workspace a bit and makes it easier to manage. In this case, we've added a default and a diamond case. Now, some more new features that we've got. We're going to go ahead and open the retrieve contact, but then we can do some kind of Windows GUI type concepts. We can play a sound. This is based on the basic Windows sounds. So in this case, asterisk beep, exclamation. In this case, we'll say exclamation. And then you can also use the message box, the Windows message box. And basically, this can be used for, if, for example, the incident that comes through is about something that's very new, and you just need to send the message to the agent, hey, I want you to check this out. Or in this case, we're saying, hey, be really nice to this customer, they're VIP. All right, so let's run that through. Again, you're gonna match Emma Jones because I've got her phone number in here. We'll go ahead and run that through. We'll see we matched. We're gonna open that contact. We played a sound and we've popped up a message box. Again, very simple. Just lets you interact with the agent in a very simple way. And we've had a couple of requests for something of that nature, so that's where that came from. Again, all of the feedback we've gotten from all you guys has been really instrumental in kind of saying, hey, what are the next things and how can we make things easier? So all of these have come from customer and partner feedback. On the message box, you've got some flexibility. You can have some okay or cancels. You can have some yes, no's or yes, no cancel. You can do some interesting things in this message box. Maybe that is, on cancel, you want to do, if they cancel, you want to do a different activity. So maybe on okay, we go down one tree and say we've checked the OMS and there's active orders. And we say, hey, if you'd like to see the open orders, hit okay. If not, hit cancel. So it lets you have some flexibility with agent interaction as well as notification concepts. And that kind of ties it up for the segmentation use case. We'll move on over. External data workflow. This is where we're going to use PopFlow to interact out with a third-party system. And this could be EBS, this could be another Oracle backend system, this could be a totally third-party legacy CRM or other provider CRM. But basically we're saying, hey, this business doesn't keep this information inside of Service Cloud. It's in the order management system or EBS, the retail system, something of that nature. So in this case, what we're going to do is, this is an anti-screen pop as well, but we're going to get a no match in Service Cloud because we're not using Service Cloud as our master data record. We have a large organizational master data record. And I have out on the internet a small REST service just we can interact with. And basically what we're going to say is, hey, if we get a no match, I want you to send out a REST request to this resource. And then go ahead and, in this case, we're just going to do some logging to say whether or not it failed or it succeeded or failed. And then we're going to have this assigned variable block. Now, this is not necessarily a new feature, but it's a big UI change, or it's a nice UA change that we've made. Basically, instead of having 15 different assigned variable blocks, which takes up a lot of space, we've given you the ability to come through and add those all into one block. So again, this is more of a usability enhancement, but it is very nice, and it makes it visibly easier to look at. So in this case, we're going to take the information that came back from that JSON request, map the variables, and then go ahead and create a new contact. And you'll see the information that's not in Service Cloud gets dropped back by. So again, oh, and another small feature that some folks will appreciate, you'll notice in here, the query requires a JSON block, and our variables are also in brackets. So one thing you'll notice here is this $$ concept around the variable lets you embed PopFlow curly bracket variables within JSON constructs within PopFlow. So again, very nice. Go ahead and execute this one out. We've got this phone number in our third-party data set. We're going to go through, we'll do that request, map the data fields, and here we've created a new contact. Again, all of this data, not native to Service Cloud, we've just mapped that from that third-party system. All right, close out of the Jones as well, do some cleanup here. All right, now I know several of you have been very excited about this next feature. We call this use case workflow selector. And this feature has a lot of different kinds of uses. Basically what we're allowing now is the ability to call PopFlow interaction workflows from within an interaction workflow. You can use this for a lot of different reasons. The use case I've got up on the screen is for kind of almost literally a workflow selector or triage. Hey, I want to look at the DNIS or the phone number that came through with the call, and we know they called this 800 number, or what we want to do is we want to run different types of workflows based on that. So in this case, I make a little log statement to say that, hey, we're coming in, and our context, this is the data set that we have. And then we're going to do this interaction value switch on DNIS. So what came through is the number they called. And if the DNIS was 1,000, we'll run an appointment workflow. If the DNIS was 2,000, we'll run the order workflow. Or if it's any other DNIS, let's just go ahead and run the basic ANI workflow. And then on complete, we've got a logging statement here that says ran a formal workflow and then completed. Now, we're going to dial in and we're going to run this 2,000 workflow. It actually runs through this workflow here, which is a basic ANI, but we're saying this is an order explicitly. We're raising a named event to change the way the workspace looks. So let's go ahead and run that. All right, we're going to execute this. We notice we're passing through the phone number and the DNIS of 2,000. This could also be based on any other IVR data that comes through with the call. In this case, we just chose DNIS. We hit OK. You'll notice we're running the order workflow. We've popped up our new incident. You've noticed the order workflow had us, hey, we've identified the person, we've put their contact information in. We fired a named event to set the order's visibility, and the agent's on their way to helping out that customer. But going back to the workflow, let me pull up the log here. You'll notice, and I apologize, it's a little busy, but we're coming in here, and you see here we're going to switch that branch. So that's where we decided what DNIS we're going to run. We've executed that workflow. And everything within here, this area here, is all the logs from the order workflow. We come back, we say, hey, interaction complete. Now, there's a concept here that I'm showing the log for a reason. One of the ways that this can be used is, I know, and there's even some folks on the phone that have worked with this, you have one thing that you do often within a workflow, and you're having to repeat it all over the place. So what this does is it allows you to almost create a function that you can call. So if your MDM lookup is, in 5 or 6 different places in your workflow, all you need to do is make sure that the data is needed is set before you call that PopFlow. And then you can run that as almost like a function that will return the data that you're looking for next. And there's 2 different ways that you can run a PopFlow. You can run it inline, which we just did, where you saw we came in, we started with a new inbound interaction, made our case selection, we ran this PopFlow completely, and then we popped out here to the login. Had this not been here, this is the kind of the on-off. If there's no activity here, and we just say run PopFlow, this PopFlow will run asynchronously. It'll go take care of itself, and this PopFlow would continue on. So it wouldn't wait for that to finish. Again, it would also mean that it couldn't return any data to the master data or master workflow. But it is useful in the event of things like breadcrumbing. Say you want to make a breadcrumb of what PopFlow is doing and how it's being run. So at certain points during the call flow, you may kick off this run PopFlow to just reach out to a service and say, hey, here's a bunch of data about where we are. Or I need to notify this other system that this customer is called in. A lot of different use cases you can use here. But it's been something that a lot of folks have asked us for, and we've really worked on getting that taken care of. Again, variables pass between the workflows, and you can kind of inline them or run them asynchronously. Again, really powerful new tool. And additionally, another very powerful but simple tool to use, is the OnTab Change. Now, there's been a lot of use cases that have kind of brought this into fruition, and we'll kind of talk about those. But let me talk about the mechanics first. So the OnTab Change activity basically comes in and it says on new, on change, or on close. And then it lets you do some actions based on the fact that the agent switched from one tab to another tab. And it also outputs some data about what was the old tab and what is the new tab. So what we're going to do in this use case is basically I'm going to kick off this PopFlow. It's going to run resident, and then I'll move some data around on our tabs, and we'll look at the logs and see what those are doing. Let me clear out the logs here just a little bit, get some space so we can see that. We're going to go ahead and execute this. We don't need any data for it. You'll see here, OnTab Change is now active, and it's listening. We go to our log, you'll notice we've started the PopFlow. Now, if I come over here and I click on this incident, the first thing you're going to see in the log is, hey, you've got a tab change. Here's the old tab with its identifier, what type of tab it was. Is it a workspace? Does it have an ID? Is it open? Is it new? And then you have the new tab. This is the tab you switched to. Again, we come back over here. I'm going to open up Emma Jones. You'll notice a nice thing on your tab monitor. The yellow changes to where it is. So we just had a change because I changed back to this tab monitor. If I had Emma Jones, again, we'll hit a tab. And you'll see here, every time I change a tab, PopFlow is getting updated on what tab is active and what was the old tab. You'll see in the case of that customer, it's a contact and its ID. Is it open? Is it new? Let's talk about some of the use cases on how we would do that. You'll see that as I close that tab, we switched over to unclose. So there's several different use cases. One of the ones that we just talked about recently in a call was the ability to see how much time an agent is on an email. So you may be using Harmony to deliver emails to agents, or you may just be getting the agents pulling them down. What you can do is you can now start to write to a data source, whether that's the Harmony interaction table, a custom interaction table, or some other third-party data. And you can say, this email, okay, we knew the email was routed and we've got an object within the interaction table. Now, every time they focus on that tab, we can have a start-stop event. And basically, we can start to track how much time exactly was used on email, which is something that's been fairly elusive for quite some time. Another great example is, say that you've got an agent that's got several different types of interactions going on. On tab change, if they get a new tab that pops up, you can stop recording information in the original tab. Sorry, I kind of lost my spot there. But again, very powerful tool. Lots of different use cases that can be used here. And again, I'm only doing logging just to show the concept, but each one of these can be filled with anything you'd like. Now, of course, this is kind of unwieldy to use within a PopFlow, right? Because it's going to stay active, and when does it stop and when does it start? First of all, you'll notice we've added a stop in the design test harness. So we've stopped this workflow now. But how would we do this such that we want to monitor tab change all the time? Another one of our new activities is run once. And what run once does is basically the first time PopFlow, the agent PopFlow engine is initialized, it runs that workflow. So in this case, I'm saying, hey, when the agent logs in, I want you to run tab monitor. And tab monitor will continue to run the life of that interaction. And then go ahead and do your screen pop that you'd like to do. And maybe that's a retrieve contact, or maybe that's the workflow selector. But this lets you, run once lets you run that just one time and have some, kind of resident activities that are going on at all times. So this run once is very powerful. Should be a lot of interest there. This little icon here is added in so that, for example, let's execute this workflow. Let me put in my Annie. This lets us run through. We went ahead and did our basic Annie screen pop. But sorry about that. But that tab monitor is still running in the background. If we wanted to reset that here, that means that when we run execute, it'll run again. That way we can move that around and change that. So it's definitely some new functionality there. All right. The other couple of things that I don't have in use cases that we want to go through, and I just want to highlight some of those. Assign JSON block. So you can now drop large blocks of JSON into a variable that you can then act on with the different, logic constructs that you have in here. Calculate. This has been something we've been asked for quite a bit. Calculate basically lets you do exactly what it sounds like. So the result is, new count is old count plus 1. But it lets you manage some, some looping and some logic constructs. Pretty powerful, very useful. We've already seen that in use. Let's see here. The while loop, obviously you can use that with calculate, or you can use it. One of the use cases that while loop came to was like on a recording. We wanted to have while this is active, wait. And that wait is at the bottom here called sleep. So it lets you pause an interaction while it's going along. This section here, the harmony bar, some of these have been around for a little while, but this is kind of a new construct. And this is actually, we're going to save this for a separate webinar that we'll be doing shortly, which talks about integrating PopFlow and harmony and how that would work. But there's some really cool stuff that you can do in these as far as changing the way the harmony toolbar looks based on different events, or using it to control things like recording. So really powerful thing, a lot of fun there. Let's see here. NARVAR, I'm not sure that all of you have heard about. This is a direct integration to NARVAR, which is a ship tracking company. We see that a lot in our large retailers. Basically what this does is this lets you query NARVAR directly via the API to go get shipping information. So Wizmo calls or where's my order calls, the time on those gets drastically reduced because we can go out as soon as the customer calls, we can go get all the shipping information about that customer and have that back for the agent. We also have something called a NARVAR pop-up, which basically just presents the agent with a pop-up window with all of the activities and then, where it is in the shipping process. Has it been shipped yet? Maybe it's in progress, or it's been delivered and signed for by a receptionist. It gives them a pop-up screen that's just prettily formatted so they can see that right away. Again, really popular with the retail section. And I believe that is all of the new information. Logging, for some, this isn't brand new, but we've got some different levels on trace logging. But that are all of the new features that we kind of wanted to work through today. I wanted to give just a second, Steve, I don't know if you had any comments or anything I might have missed that you wanted to call out.
Oh, I'll call out one thing on the run once activity. That runs once during each Oracle Service Cloud session. And so we have global data now. So if you assign variable to global dot something, that data will survive the entire session of Oracle. So if you have to query an external database for get some information you want that will be constant for every single call but take some time, if you put it inside a run once, assign global data, you can use that data for each call without requerying for it. So it can save some startup time for each call. So that's a pretty powerful feature of that one runs.
Yeah, good call, definitely. All right, Chris, I will hand it back to you. I don't know if we've got any questions yet, but we want to make sure we've got a little bit of time to address this.
Perfect. Thank you, Jerric. All great stuff. At this time, we will open it up to Q&A. We have about 20 minutes left, so we've got some time. We've got a few questions so far. Feel free to start asking your questions and putting them in the question box. The first question is, when will this be released?
And I was on mute. I apologize. So this is the bleeding edge version. Steve, all of these features are currently in the GA. Am I correct, or is that?
That's correct.
Correct. Yeah. So all of these features, I haven't shown you anything you can't use today. Obviously, there would be an upgrade procedure. If you're just running PopFlow, that's just upgrading the PopFlow add-ins. If there is Harmony involved, we would need to take a kind of a bigger look at doing an upgrade of all of the systems, because the Harmony media bar and PopFlow are fairly in sync. So we'd want to make sure that that's taken into consideration. Chris?
Okay, great. The next question is, with the release, when this is released, will there be documentation for it?
Absolutely. Yep. We'll have all this documented out, and you know, again, we'll also be publishing some small videos on each one of the features and activities that say, you know, hey, I want to use this activity. We'll do a short video on those. That's a process that we're just now getting started, but you'll start to be able to see those off our website.
Perfect. That's great. Next question. On the left-hand side, there's a Harmony section. What can be done with these elements? Can the behavior of Harmony media bar be changed, or can I create my desired media bar?
Okay. Oh, hey, Sasha. Again, we're going to do a bigger presentation on that, but it does allow you to change, you know, what the media bar looks like, to add some functions and features within that vertical section on the right within the Harmony media bar. Another thing that I didn't really call out specifically is set attached data. This works with Harmony. So if you're in a Cisco system and you've got pervars, or you're in a Genesis system and you've got attached data, you can start to push some information back to the CTI platform, which is really helpful for reporting and, you know, some pegging and analytics on the CTI side. So we want to make sure that, you know, that data is not only within Service Cloud, but it's also on the CTI. Again, we can also see those for transfers. So if I want to update, you know, the call comes in and they're asking about one service request, but the agent solves that problem and creates a new service request, I'm going to want to update the CTI data so that when that call is transferred to the next agent, they get the correct context, since that context is done a little bit of switching on the first interaction.
Perfect. Great. That's kind of all the questions that we have. There was just the three. If anybody else has any questions, feel free to kind of put them in now. Nothing coming through. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. If you do come up with any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to us. Most of you should have contact information for us, but if you don't, you can always just email me directly. It's real easy. It's just my first name, Chris, C-H-R-I-S, @openmethods.com. Again, Chris @openmethods.com. We did record this. We'll be sending out a link to our YouTube page later in the week. The recording will actually have some contact info at the end as well. So if you want to watch it again or share it with your colleagues, this will be available to you. So with that, we say thank you again and enjoy the rest of your day.